Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number 24 of the No Punches Pulled podcast. Myself, JFT, and Liam Tully in the house. Boys, how are we doing? We're well?
Yeah, man. Good. Recovered from the weekend of
just
endless watch-alongs, but yeah, I'm good. You?
Very good, my end. Very good, my end, my man. Endless watch-alongs. A bit quieter of a week this week, shall we say. Chisora Wallin being the standout attraction. As far as I know, not a lot of or any stateside boxing. What's his name? Jalalov's fighting tomorrow night, I believe, in Canada. There's a card on, but this weekend I don't believe there's any US cards. So Derek Chisora's last dance is going to dominate, boys. So we'll go straight into it, shall we?
Can I just one thing just before we start? I just wanted to send out my heartfelt wishes to John Cooney and his family, a boxer that's struggling at the moment. Lost a British title challenge at the weekend, and he got taken to hospital. And I think they found a hemorrhage on his brain. So I think he's in an induced coma at the moment. Stable. So just sending out our thoughts and prayers from the No Punches Pulled team to boxer John Cooney and his family.
Yeah, echo that 100%, mate. Well said, JFT. Yems Talks Boxing, thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
big up
man.
this channel, rate this channel a lot. Thank you for the kind words, my friend. With Chisora One, I think it's a 50-50. I genuinely think it is myself. We'll get into that in a minute. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Yems.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, he could have chosen an easier opponent for his last one in the UK, Chisora, to be fair to him. I think Wallin's going to have a tough style for him, boys, on Saturday night.
I think Wallin beats him. If I'm honest, I think.
I'm with you.
I just think it's the wrong fight at the wrong time. I think if Chisora was, 5 years younger maybe and had a little bit more about him, but Chisora's never been that hard to read. He does what he does, and he's great at it. He sits on your chest, throws very few punches, and then looks to counter you with an overhand right. I don't even think it's a counter, but it's normally throws at the same time or just after someone with his bombing overhand right. His output's even lesser. So now that towards the end of his career, Wallin's not that old. He's not that bad. People, he could, in a different scenario, he would have beat Tyson Fury. That fight would have got stopped. Right, in a different scenario, that was a deadly cut that a lot of referees.
Gone there early.
Anywhere other than Vegas, that would have been stopped.
It would have been stopped. So, look, he gave Tyson Fury fits and farts when allegedly Tyson Fury was, getting to be the greatest of a generation or whatever. Otto Wallin's a good fighter. I think he's underrated because of the high-profile losses that he's had.
Beat Murat Gassiev, Jay, as well.
That's what I'm saying. He's not actually as bad. I think Chisora and Team Chisora have not thought this through properly. And unless Wallin's come here for a payday and he's not trained and he's going to roll over and do a friendly spar, which I don't believe he will, then I think it's all wrong for Chisora, and I don't see this ending well for him.
Yeah. I echo Jay's sentiments. I think beating Joe Joyce at the O2 last summer has given Queensbury and maybe even Chisora himself a bit of delusions of grandeur in terms of what opponent he can take on for this fight. I mean, if he lost to Joe Joyce, he still would have had his farewell fight, but they would not have picked out a heavyweight on the level of Otto Wallin. That's the reality. They would have looked for more of a B-side fighter that gave
Charles Martin.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Martin's been talking about a town today, hasn't he? So that's
Good luck with that, kid. Good luck with that.
Staying on topic for this, when this fight was made, we obviously chatted about it on our group, and we all said the same thing. Wallin is all wrong for Chisora. We all favour him. And I'm sitting here in fight week, and I'm still the same. I'm a big fan of Del Boy, War Chisora. He's been everything over the years. He's been a great servant for British boxing. But that Joyce victory has given him, I think, a few ideas that he can take on fighters he can't. I mean, look, if you're Otto Wallin, you've lost to Anthony Joshua, who one of Anthony Joshua's best performances of the last 5 years was the Otto Wallin fight.
He looked great that night, didn't he?
Great that night. And as Jay's already said, and as I chimes in and said, if that fight against Fury was anywhere but Vegas, it gets stopped on that cut. We've seen fights, for example, over here in Britain get stopped for less than the state Fury's I was in that night. So it's a dangerous fight. The thing that, the question I've asked myself this week is, who's actually asked about this fight? And I mean that with the greatest of respects, because Derek Chisora's output, as Jay's touched on, is so low in the last couple of years. If he throws more than 20 punches around, then you're getting lucky.
Yeah.
Otto Wallin has never been known as a high output fighter either. It could be very much a stalemate. And if we're honest, that card, obviously, losing Willie Hutchinson, whoever comes in for Zach Parker isn't going to be up to much. It's a bit of a slog, isn't it? Especially
it is a little bit. I was going to come on to that, Liam. You're right. The card's been dampened a lot by losing that. Is it really a Derek Chisora fight if he's not looking like he's been 15 rounds after a round and a half with his mouth?
Oh, no, it'd be blowing out of his ass. It'd be blowing out of his ass after 2 minutes. I just going back to something Liam said about who's looked at this, I think with Chisora, I don't think it's a case of that. He does what he wants, and he's probably picked it himself. He's probably been offered 5 names or 3 names or whatever, and he's picked Otto Wallin. I think he was trying to make the Dillian White fight, and Dillian wasn't ready or, isn't ready.
I think he'd have a real chance of beating Dillian if that
so
fight
do I. So do I. Going on, recency bias, Dillian wasn't impressive in his last fight. Far from it. But neither was Dell. But Dell obviously beat Joe Joyce, and I think it's given him an unrealistic expectation of himself and what he's got.
He looked like he was going to be stopped so many times by Joyce, didn't he?
Yeah,
I was convinced as I was watching it that Joyce was going to stop, and then he got with that right.
I just think it was a case of Joe Joyce was shit that night as well. So a shit Joe Joyce loses against an aging Del Boy. Del Boy, his skill set's not waned. He's the same now as what he always was. He just throws less punches, and he's never been a high output puncher anyway. So somebody like Wallin, who's fresher, younger, a little bit taller, a little bit longer, I think it'll be shit to watch. It's going to be absolutely terrible. There'll be a lot of holding, there'll be a lot of grappling, there'll be a little jockeying for position, a lot of referee involvement. And I just think he's just going to get handled by somebody that's younger, fresher, and has a little bit more left. I think we'll see him again. I think he'll make another fight in Africa for his last one. I don't think this is going to be his last one. I think this will be his last one over here.
Look, on that last dance thing, if you even the TNT and Queensbury accounts have come out this week is saying the last dance in the UK. Obviously, that's too long of a hashtag. You can't sell a fight on the last dance in the UK. But if this AJ and Bacoli fight that looks like it's been signed happens in Africa, number 50 happens on that undercard, you can almost guarantee it. Chisora will finish in Africa as well.
Chisora and Ngannou on the undercard.
Yeah, something like that. And I wouldn't actually be against seeing Chisora in a fight like that. That's kind of where he's at and what he's achieved in his career and how much he's given to the British boxing public. He deserves to go out on a fight like that. I hope it's a good crowd in Manchester on Saturday night. It looks like ticket sales have gone reasonably well. It looks like there's going to be a good crowd in there. I hope everyone there gets behind Del Boy. They will give him a good send-off. But I almost would have rather he lost to Joe Joyce, so he got maybe a level of opponent more worthy of a send-off. And look, we know boxing doesn't do fairy tales. It's not how the game goes. The name Ant Crawler, didn't he? His farewell fight, he handpicks an opponent that almost that night didn't.
That nearly. I was there.
That was on a level where he picked an opponent who was there for the farewell. Del Boy's gone in with an opponent that, if Wallin strings a run together, you could see him getting in a title picture once.
Yeah, Wallin's still there or thereabouts. Wallin is either a tough test for somebody that's looking to get to world level, or, as you say, with 2 or 3 decent wins, he's back in contention either for a European or a fringe work, the IBO or something like that. So Otto Wallin's not an opponent I would have picked. If I was part of Team Chisora, he is a name I would not have picked. There are
high risk, low reward kind of job.
King banana skin. This has got Del Boy losing written all over it for me, and I'm lacking confidence for Derek, and I very rarely go into Chisora fights. He's always got a chance for me. Even maybe. I think I don't think
Wallin hits that hard, does he, for a heavyweight? But
he hits in clusters, and when Fury work, there's always that little section that they show Fury where he's and it's about Fury's defense. But Wallin throws about 30 punches in that.
Southpaw as well, Wallin, which is going to be difficult, isn't it?
It's all wrong for Derek. I think he'll punch his head off until Del Boy just can't come forward anymore. And he might get stopped similar to, was it Fury 3, where he just beat and no, Fury 2 wasn't
Fury
it?
2,
Beat,
Fury 2, he just got battered and
he just pulled him out, didn't he? Don Charles pulled him out. Something like that may happen because he's too tough for his own good. Derek is not gonna. He's not gonna quit.
Especially as it's his last one, Jay. He will go out. He goes out on his shield anyway. But
you could see Derek catching him in first couple of rounds and flatlining him.
Boxing said he could just see that Carlos Takam moment again, couldn't you? When he was getting comprehensively beaten, bang, just hits him with that overhand right.
This is the thing with Del Boy. He could be 8-0 down on Saturday night and the fight can be going the way we think it's going to go, but he just needs 30 seconds. He's done it too many times in his career. He just needs a 30-second moment to turn the fight around. And I would not write him off doing that on Saturday. It's just, we're 7 months removed from the Joe Joyce contest. And we sat on the very first time the three of us put something out there and all said, we love Del Boy, but we want to see him retire. Now, last night was the artist formerly known as Derek Chisora. He won that fight mainly because he was up against the even more poor Joe Joyce in the other corner on the night. We all said we'd be happy to see him retire. 7 months on, we're seeing him back. We know he doesn't have a proper training team around him. Ruben Tabares, the strength and conditioning guy, is the only consistent around him in the last 6 years. We know he kind of trains by himself. He's doing his own thing out in Saudi and doing whatever he's doing with his life. He's not as dedicated and doesn't have a Dave Caldwell or someone like that in his corner anymore that's going to look after him. So there is a danger that he gets flatlined or too close to his whoever the referee is on Saturday night, which hasn't come out yet, doesn't normally come out till a Thursday or Friday, may have to save Chisora from his own goods because the crowd will will him on all night. He's not going to not get up off his stool, but the last thing we want to see is his last fight in a British ring. He's carried out on his back. That wouldn't be the way we want it to end.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's well said, mate. Ryan's in the house. Hope you're well, Ryan. Thanks as always for joining us. I think Chisora might get stopped by Wallin on Saturday night. We'll come back to Chisora Wallin. I just want to talk about, obviously, the two of you sound like the way that I'm kind of feeling about the card on Saturday. You know, we've been spoiled, especially this past weekend with a great night of boxing. But Willie Hutchison and Zach Parker coming off this card is kind of a bit of a kick in the nuts, shall we say, isn't it? Because I was really looking forward to that
great
fight. It was a great fight. I really rate Zach Parker. I think he's been a little bit unlucky, you know, especially in that John Ryder fight with the injury and stuff like that. He's looked fairly decent. Tyrone Zerga wobbled him a couple of fights ago, but he looked good against Arnfield last time out. Willie Hutchison's had this rise, hasn't he? Beat Spider Richards at the 5v5. And then, you know, although he took a bit of a beating off Boazzi, God, he made it tough for Boazzi. He's tough man, Willie Hutchison. That was going to be a proper fight, that. I know Nathan Heaney's still on the card, but he's fighting a comeback fight after the Brad Paul stoppage. You've got the Commonwealth featherweight, Abdullah versus Miller on there as well. But overall, it doesn't quite feel like, you know, it's there, does it, this card on Saturday?
No one on it. There's no one on it, really. There's no fights on it, should I say. There's people on it, so there's names on it. But the Hutchinson-Parker fight was a fight. It was a fight that we were interested to see. It was a fight that had implications domestically. And now that that's gone, it's just one-sided fights, pretty much. You know, it's tough. It's going to be a tough watch. Yeah, I'll watch it nonetheless, but it's going to be a tough watch.
Yeah. Hutchinson Parker was carrying the card in terms of being a named fight. So not very often. Think how many times when you get a heavyweight main event do you get an undercard fight announced at the same time? You don't normally, because heavyweights sell themselves. Queensbury announced Parker and Hutchinson at the same time as they announced Chisora Wallin because they knew they needed that fight. The interesting thing for me is in the Queensbury statement, the injury they listed for Willie's quite severe. He's already had his surgery. He's already had his operation. Yeah. So my question is, how long ago has this injury happened? Why have we only heard about it on Fight Week? Kind of thing? Because that's not, you know, it's not sounding like he's been cut in his last sparring session. Say Sam Goodman, what happened?
They did say he'd done it in sparring. They did say he did it in sparring, whether that's true or not. But
you know, already had the surgery.
That hard to rip you.
To do an injury like that, that's a pretty, you know, hopefully Willie can come back and they can get this fight back on probably in a year's time, by the time Willie's
a long
come back.
recovery, that. It's
Yeah.
6 to 8 months, isn't it, for that?
Yeah. It's just a shame. I mean, it looks like Zach Parker's going to stay on the cards, but as I said at the start of this,
you can't bring anyone decent in for him that last minute. It's not.
I mean, Jack Rafferty, Reece McMillan for the British and Commonwealth down at super light probably is now going to be the best fight on the cards.
Get Elvis in the building, man.
Yeah.
Get
Elvis a Horner back in.
Building.
Yeah, I'd watch it. I'd watch it 100%.
I'd watch that fight. I swear to God I would. Get Elvis in, man. He can turn around quick.
I ain't turning it down. Hope you're well, Rambler. Thanks for joining us, my friend. Chisora's quite good at holding when he's hurt. Maybe he can survive. Yeah, Chisora ain't going down without a fight.
Look, you can see a way. Sorry, mate. You can see a way for Chisora to hold and spoil his way through 10 rounds.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, to see that left hook that Hay flattened Chisora with, what a shot that was.
His arms went the opposite way, didn't they? I had to watch it. My internet went down at home. I had to sit in back of my van and use my neighbour's internet to watch that fight. Me and Charlie in back of my van.
Times were simpler back then, mate. They were.
And look, you can say all you want that we're sounding a bit spoiled because we've had a reasonably good start to the year in terms of the fights we've seen, but we sang Queensbury's praises to the rooftops at the back end of last year about how good their domestic cards were and how they would have, they would have standard bearer out of Matchroom, Queensbury and Boxer, and they were really using the Saudi money wisely. The Saudi money is obviously still there. We know that because in 3 weeks' time, we've got one of the greatest boxing cards to ever exist. I'm going to hold out on it being the best ever until every fighter makes it to fight week, because those Saudi cards have a habit of falling off. You can't say that Chisora and Wallin blew your whole budget for the fight cards. You can't, that's what it comes across as. They put all the money into Chisora and Wallin, and they've just got other fighters out there.
They know they're getting a sellout, irrespective of anything, because they'll turn out for Chisora. That's kind of the position that Queensbury are in, I guess.
And you could also say, well, they're moving over to the Zone in April. They've got this show and then the one in Bournemouth left on TNT. How much do they really care about what they put out on TNT? But I don't think that's how Frank does things. Frank owes everything to BT and that became TNT for actually getting him back onto mainstream TV when he was in oblivion. So I don't think it's anything. It's just a shame. It's just a shame because we had good cards last weekend. We've got a good cards next weekend in Manchester, again at the same arena for Castle Barbosa Jr. So yeah, it will be a tough slog. Look, we'll watch it. We'll be there. And the fact it's coming on TV at 6:00, we might get a main event before 10 p.m, which would be nice, but it is
Queensbury we're talking about here.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there at midnight watching Chisora take a pummel for 10 rounds, I'm not.
Yeah, look, we'll see how it goes. We've got another card on Friday night as well. Shekan Pitters is challenging De Santos for the EBU light heavyweight championship. That should be that's in Sheffield. That should be a decent fight, to be fair, to keep an eye on. I'm not fully sure on the undercard for that. And then there's some boxing on GBM. It is, it's on the Zone. You've got the Sun boxing on Sunday, I believe, as well. Is it the Brentwood Centre?
Yes, that's Tom Wellens.
Tom Wellard, is it?
Yeah, the Wasserman prospect that, it actually looks like he's going to be a decent fighter. But yeah, that's a good bit of Sunday night boxing. Yeah, look, GBM are again, they're going back to that Park Community Arena in Sheffield that they delivered that banger on back in September. And they put on another good card, mate. They are slowly creeping up. You look at some of the fighters they've got tied to them or fighters they've had to fight on their cards. They're going to be in a position pretty soon where if Boxer don't pull their socks up, they're probably going to be seen as the third best because their cards have delivered every time. The only criticism from them, and Izzy's come out and said it himself, has been the pacing. I mean, their pacing hasn't been the best, but they are still a promoter learning. They're just obviously...
Yeah, they don't have the names necessarily, but the one thing they have on their advantage is they make competitive fights, so their cards do deliver. And it's better than watching some of the non-competitive... for example, I know Frank's lost Hutchison against Parker, which would have been a very competitive fight, but, you could see a lot of A-side dominated fights on Saturday night here. We saw it in some of the Boxer cards as well, and that's not me digging them out, but some of the best fights that we watch are British level or even lesser level than English level. Look at the Janae Boston fight. That was a great fight last weekend. It doesn't need to be world title level all the time. As long as there's competitive fights on, that's what, as hardcore boxing fans I'm talking about. I understand the casuals like the namesakes and so on and so forth. But as you know, the hardcore boxing fans are the core audience.
I think that's the problem that the Saudi money's causing for grassroots boxing. All the money's at the top end, so there's less money for the smaller hall shows. So that we're getting less small hall shows. So we're seeing less of these domestic dust ups because everybody's aspiring to just get to the top to get a piece of the pie from over in the Middle East. But I agree. Some of the best fights we've ever seen. I mean, the two fights, as you said, the two fights on Friday night were probably two of the better fights of the weekend.
Oh, easily.
The two that we watched on Friday night, the next gen, they were proper 50-50 fights. They weren't supposed to be, but they ended up being, well, one of them, the Boston fight, certainly wasn't meant to be. That was meant to be his sort of coming out party.
It was,
first belt, etc. And we saw how that went. So.
Look, it's all. I like GBM. They done well at the start of last year. They're building something special over there. But Pitter's losing a European title fight. I mean, Izzy is probably, is absolutely praying that he's able to hear and a new on Friday night. Because if you can have a European champion to build some shows around later in the year, that's only going to help, isn't it?
Yeah, Dos Santos has only lost to Buatsi. He was stopped by Buatsi. Aside from that, he's won every fight.
Yeah, he's on a good.
It's not going to be an easy out for Shakan Pitters, that. But again, look, we'll see how it goes. At least it's boxing on. But aside from that, boys, that's probably the previewing of the weekend done. But we've had plenty go on outside of the ring in the past at least couple of days. Anyway, we have to talk about Canelo Crawford's now agreed for September. Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, 65,000 plus capacity for that one. But I want to address the elephant in the room of the Cinco de Mayo date for Canelo, because we heard it was William Skull, and then all of a sudden last night we're getting these reports that it could be Jake Paul, and there's real people that are trusted and reliable journalists that are reporting this. I mean, I know we don't like to give the old Jake Paul thing some airtime, but if he's fighting one of the best pound for pound fighters in the sport, unfortunately, we have to. Do you think it's a possibility, Canelo fighting Jake Paul in May? No. And if it is, no. I actually think it's quite smart on Canelo's behalf because, and I don't agree with him fighting Paul, but I'll tell you why I think it's smart on Canelo's behalf, because he can deflect the hell out of fighting Jake Paul to make all of because he's already agreed to fight Crawford in September. So he can just be like, well, I'm fighting the best pound for pound fighter in the sport in 2 months' time. He can make 250 mil this year, Canelo.
Mate, I don't care about that. The narrative for him should be that I'm fighting William Skull in September, so I have all the belts back. So we have, the ultimate undisputed versus undisputed showdown with Crawford in September. That should be the narrative for me. Far arsing around in a special fight with Jake Paul where it will be scripted so poor Jake doesn't end up in a neck brace for the rest of his life.
I couldn't imagine Canelo agreeing to a scripting. I honestly couldn't. Canelo ain't that guy, man. No. He isn't that guy.
No one. Look, I don't want to see the fight.
Canelo would absolutely pulverize Jake Paul.
Listen, I don't know why the fight's never going to happen.
It will be William Skull.
Why we're talking about it?
It will be William Skull.
I hope it is
We're
William
buying
Skull,
into the bullshit. I'm not.
But when you have trusted journalists that are reporting this, for me,
reporting
Mike Coppinger,
they're reporting rumor though. They're reporting rumor. There's no fact. There's no statements from anybody in any of the teams.
Jake Paul's out of his mind if he takes it. Is that desperate for fame that I actually think he would take it.
Joke,
but anyway,
absolute fucking joke. If it happens, I hope Canelo puts him in a fucking body bag. And then
he's that desperate
sick
for
to
fame,
fucking
and he's
death
that
of about
deluded
it.
that he probably
Put
thinks
him
he
in
can
a
do
bag.
A
Yes, I did say that. It's a fucking joke. I'm sick of diluting the sport that I've watched for 40 years. Knobheads that are getting fights based on the fact that they've got a big following. He's done fuck all to justify fighting anybody that's supposed, somebody that's supposed to be a pound for pound great. I'm telling you now, if it happens, I swear on my children, I will not watch it. I will not watch it. So you won't have me on a live. I won't watch it.
I don't.
Sadly, by yourself, mate, because I will not be doing it either.
I'm not watching it.
On this one.
I don't think it'll happen, boys.
I didn't think Canelo. I don't think Canelo's that desperate for money. I mean, he can get the kind of payday he's going to get. It might pay him.
He is cherry picking
million more than what he gets anyway. But we're
talking
cherry picking telephone numbers.
he's cherry picked for the last couple of years, so it fits the narrative of what he's actually.
I'd rather watch Dylan Dennis versus KSI.
Well, you might have to.
I know that fight's been made. That's why I said it.
And
that'll be dog shit. But I won't actually watch it. But
I think
the way he's just in a comeback fight, mate. He's not fighting anyone of note on the.
An Indian fighter that I think's only got 2 stoppages in his career.
He's
so
not fighting anybody decent. Hi, Pat. Hope you're well, my friend.
The way I look at it with this Canelo thing is, even if he takes on William Skull, it's still cherry picking for me because Skull always picks up that IBF belt off the fact that Canelo was stripped. That's the only reason that him and Shishkin had to fight. They were meant to have a rematch. That's now not happening, which indicates to me that if the rematch isn't happening, Skull is going over to Vegas to hand over his belt for a lot of money, similar to what Rocky Fielding done with his regular title back 5-6 years ago. He's taken a lot of money to take a payday. That's what's happening there. And then
Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, a lot of them done it, to be fair to
them. Of course. And look, you can't begrudge them doing it.
Yeah.
Mate, you can't begrudge them doing it at all. But the reality is, at this point, you've announced the Crawford fight. Fantastic. But it comes back to similar to my annoyance with Haney and Garcia fighting what's going to be the night before whoever Canelo fights. You've said what you're doing at the end of the year, but now we still got the bullshit of you fighting other people that could actually jeopardize the big thing at the end of the year. Canelo gets a nasty cut or gets stopped or loses to Skull. The value of that Crawford fight absolutely plummets. That's the reality. I mean, they'll still make it. It will still happen, but it loses so much interest if Canelo slips up.
Let me tell you here and now, Canelo will fight either Paul or Skull. He ain't fighting in Billy because the Crawford, like you say, in Billy's too dangerous for a Crawford September fight. There's no value in fighting Christian and Billy, or at least Skull brings the undisputed fight, doesn't it? Although it's the worst fight on paper. But what does Billy bring? Apart from a shitload of power and a dangerous test, whereas William Skull won't land a glove on Canelo with the greatest of respect.
Look, in Billy's WBO number 1, but the WBO have not called that mandatory yet. We all know why they've not called that mandatory, because Canelo's their golden goose. But Skull, as much as it's the worst fight on paper you could possibly see Canelo in 11 weeks' time, he brings a belt to the table, and that's all Canelo's after. He wants as many marbles as he can on the Crawford fight.
Yeah, adds a couple of extra mil onto the Crawford revenue.
And it's still shit.
For an undisputed fight. It would help PBC, Pat, for sure. But look, at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think William Skull is the likely opponent for
I hope so. I hope it's a real fight. That's what we want to see Canelo in before.
Probably just testing the waters. They're probably just testing to see what the kind of reaction would be. You know, these things don't come out of thin air. Look how long the Frank Warren DAZN rumor was around for. You know, these things always have basis before they come. So, you know, there could be, trolling. There could be just doing it to test what the...
Do you know what I think they'll probably do? I think what they'll probably do with something like that is they've put Canelo's name together with it, and then they'll make the Skull fight or something like that, and then Reynoso will say, well, I tell you what, Jake, fight this kid from our gym. So they'll get some kid from their gym to give him the limelight, and if you beat this kid, then you can fight Saul next.
Thing is, for Jake, it doesn't matter whether it's Canelo or British level fighter he's losing, so like he may as well fight. He may as well fight Canelo and get the dough for it.
He might as well. Listen, at least he can always say, I tried. He knows he's not going to win. Everybody knows he's not going to win. But honestly, I can't. It makes me want to physically throw up because, people are just getting fights based on views. He's not done anything in boxing. He shouldn't be allowed anywhere. It shouldn't get sanctioned.
It would be the most ridiculous thing in the history of boxing. Like, it's not Conor McGregor who was a world champion at the time in the UFC.
In another discipline.
Yeah, it's at least he has earned his stripes, shall we say, in that regard.
Yeah. Look, Jake Paul's biggest test in his career, let's forget all the bullshit and all the influencers and MMA wrestlers that he's beaten up. His biggest test in his career was Tommy Fury, famous for going on Love Islands, and he lost that fight.
Don't lose to Tommy Fury and beat Canelo.
Yeah, and now we talk about Canelo. So, look, we know Maurizio will do it because Maurizio made some really glitzy WBC belt and sanctioned it for the fucking Tommy Fury fight. So we
Oh,
know
he'll do all.
he'll do whatever. We know how corrupt the man is, but it ain't happening. He brings in this generation, he brings in this hype, and also Jake Paul took a lot of an image hit for how that Mike Tyson fight played out.
Oh, that was, it couldn't have been any more ridiculous. Not
just the fact Netflix didn't work and
Liam.
Jay was on 2% all night, but it just, everything about that was horrendous for him. And PBC are in trouble because their pay-per-view numbers for Benavidez and Morrell, the initial look is not good at all.
That is a shame because that was a good card.
Yeah, but $80 pay-per-view for a 4-fight card. You're never.
Yeah, but that's Riyadh season. Riyadh season have fucked the market really in America.
Yes, mate. But also, is David Benavidez a big enough pay-per-view star to be warranting the $80 price?
I don't think anybody is. I think $80 is disgusting. I think 20, 25 quid is still expensive. I think once you're paying through a paywall, you shouldn't then have to pay again. Yeah. Good evening, Håkan. I think 20, 25 quid across the board throughout the world should be the benchmark.
What's better, a million at 25 or 100k at 80? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Yeah,
of course.
But when you're PBC, you probably need a million at 25 more. They're in Amazon are done.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like maybe if they drop the price point, they would double their price.
If you drop the price point, more people would watch it.
And then that's building Benavidez's profile even more. So his next fight is going to be an even bigger success. Because it was such a good fight at the weekend. That's the reality. It was such a good fight.
And it was a good Sunday morning.
It was a good card in general.
More people were talking about Adam Azim and Lipinets, and I mean, including Americans in that, from what I can see on my social media feeds. Then we're talking about the Benavidez and Morrell fight that had happened on their time zone. That's not how it should be. That's not how, with how good both those boxers are and where they should get to in their careers, that should have been the pinnacle of the weekends. Back in the HBO and Showtime days, that would have been like the massive pay-per-view to kick off the year. Like when you got a Manny Pacquiao or a Miguel Cotto or someone like that at the start of the year, they would sell it really well. That's what that should have been on Saturday night, but it doesn't look like it's done it at all.
Yeah. This TKO boxing league with Turkey and Dana White was being discussed yesterday. Mauricio Sulaiman was there. Bob Arum was there. It happened in Vegas. Did you see the article that Mike Coppinger put out about it? And have you got any thoughts on where it may lead? It'll be interesting with Dana White and Turkey at the helm. That's one thing we know.
Dana's said for years, since even before McGregor fought Floyd, that he wants to get involved in boxing at some point. He's no mug. He knows he's doing it with the right person if he does it with Turkey. You just wonder how you get everyone to conform to the one uniform. How do you get Al Heyman fighters working with Bob Arum fighters? And how do you get... I mean, on the UK side, it's all starting to come together a bit better, but how do you get the Wasserman fighters working with the boxer fighters and all of that? To get everyone under one uniform is where the challenge lies. It's a fantastic concept. If it comes off, it's going to propel boxing for me into an even bigger space than what Saudi's already done. But it's a bit different from the UFC where you're able to conform everyone into the one uniform because the talent pool isn't as deep. And by that, I mean, there isn't as many high-level mixed martial artists out there as there is professional boxers. If you look at the statistics, that's where it's at. So great concept, great idea, but you've got too many different individuals, egos, and talents to try and get to sing off the right hymn sheet for it to ever work properly for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of egos in there in that room.
Yeah. Going to be tough.
Don't want to stay away from what boxing never worked in the long run. Good idea, but will not take up before it's even started. Is my see the likes of Mauricio Sulaiman, Dana White, Bob Arum, Turkey.
But people forget that Dana's a boxing guy. He's not just a guy that's trying. Dana's a boxing guy. He started in boxing. Boxing's where he's from. So, he's not just trying it. He knows the business. The Fertitas who back Zoo for boxing know the business. So I believe that, it'll be good for boxing. It's another destination for fighters to, hopefully get some decent fights and decent paydays because it's all about the fighters ultimately in it and getting as much as they can.
Well, if Turkey's involved, people are going to want to fight under the banner.
Yeah,
it's simple as that. Everyone wants
definitely.
to fight under Riyadh season,
Yeah.
bar maybe 1 or 2 fighters, but the rest of them. Look, Garcia and Haney just signed deals this week with Riyadh season exclusively and all this. Every fighter in the world is, all the heavyweights are under Riyadh season, aren't they? It's basically what's. He is. He's only had a few fights, Rambler, hasn't he? That Walter Fury.
Yeah, he's
a cousin or something.
He's another cousin.
I haven't watched too much of him, to be honest with you.
Just going back to what you just said.
Never heard of him, to be honest. No, I've not.
He made his debut. Oh no, he's not the one that's fought out in Riyadh. There's one of the cousins that's fought out.
I know the one you're on about. Is it
Roman
he
or something like that?
Roman or something like that?
Oh, that might be who I'm thinking about.
He looks like Tyson, just a smaller version. Not as big as
I don't know who Walter is. I've not heard of him.
Yeah, look, Jay, you made a good point there. Dana did start in boxing before he's done what he's done with the UFC and turned it into the juggernaut that it is. He was in boxing, so he's not just coming into this as some guy from another sport that sod boxing. I'm going to take it over and make it the same model. He knows how boxing works. He doesn't like how boxing works, and he says it on a regular basis when he gets asked the questions in press conferences. But his heart will be in the right place. I just think once he starts getting into this and sees all the different people and all the different egos, he's going to be quite happy to go back over to all the money he's making in the UFC. It's going to be a lot of pain for not a lot of gain, I think, for Dana. And he'll quickly, I won't say he'll lose interest, but he'll quickly think better of doing it.
Yeah.
Turkey,
I don't think he's going to invest a lot of time and energy on it. I think he'll try it and then, dip out, I think.
But
we say that though, but I think Dana's contract with the UFC is not forever, is it? I think he does 5 or 10 year blocks, and I think he's coming towards the end of a block. And let's be honest, as much as we enjoy watching the UFC, the stars are flagging. There's not many superstars left in the UFC.
There's not anymore.
It's not what it was. It's hard to make big fights now. That's
He's a great promoter though. You look at Eddie Hearn and people like that. Eddie Hearn's one of the highest profile and best promoters in boxing. He said he admires Dana, what he'd love to be able to do, and all this. So look, he's going to come in, and one thing about Dana White, if he's in boxing, he'll come and cause a stir, won't he?
He'll give it his all. He don't do things by halves, does he? He'll give it his all. He'll want to disrupt the market. He'll want to piss the likes of Oscar De La Hoya off.
They hate each other, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he signs, or tries signing some of Oscar's fighters just to piss him off. He'll do something. There's always an ulterior motive to anything that Dana does, and I think this is his prime example of him doing something for not just himself but for his ego, but also to piss off somebody that he's got a disliking to.
Yeah, well, the article said it's happening in the fall, apparently. So,
as Tito says, so as Tito Ortiz says, so that's in April, is it?
I have no idea. What's the fall? October, November,
autumn.
Why? What did Tito Ortiz say?
They were asking him about a fight. It's an old clip. They're asking him about a fight, and he says, "Yeah, I'm having it in the fall." And she goes, "When?" He goes, "In the fall, April." And he goes, "Yeah."
I love it. Big up, Jams Boxing Chat. Hope you're well.
Yes, Jams.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by, bro.
Let's go into a couple of the other things. Then Delicious already signed with Queensbury Promotions today, boys. Good signing for Frank.
Home of the heavyweights.
Don't know how good he is. I mean, we've seen a little bit of him, but don't know yet. I'm reserving judgment.
WWE if it wasn't with boxing.
Great. So he's got half an eye on another sport while he's just starting out in one sport.
No, I think he was like debating whether to go between WWE or boxing or something. I read.
Okay.
I've seen the same. For me, look, we have to be realistic and say this is the first. Okay, Amir Khan got a silver out in Athens in 2004, but this is the worst.
Oh, yeah, the worst Olympic tournament.
Out come since 2008. Like, you think Frank Warren done those Magnificent Seven shows with James DeGale, Billy Joe Saunders, Frankie Gavin, and all of that lot when he signed them all after the 2008 Olympics. Then you had London, you had Rio. Tokyo, it started to drop off, but there was enough there. I mean, Lewis Richardson, who's from my hometown, was the only British medalist or the only fighter that won a fight at the Olympic Games in Paris. And I think that's where there's no excitement. I mean, Pat Brown's gone to Matchroom. Look, he looks like he has a style that will suit the professional ranks, but because he hasn't done anything at the Olympics, there isn't the hype behind him. Delicious, a grown man called Delicious. Anyway, looks the same. He's a heavyweight, so it's exciting. And Frank is fantastic.
You wouldn't say that to his face, would you?
I wouldn't, mate. I'll be very honest, I wouldn't.
I'd refuse to call him by his name to his face. I swear to God.
I'd call him Sir or something.
Sorry.
But no, look, Frank is the best place for a heavyweight to go because of how he can look after them and how he can nurture them. It's just, it's an underwhelming intake. And I think that's why we're a bit like, right, okay. And when I saw that article about the WWE that came out, I think the Olympic Games was still on. It was about 3 days after he'd lost his first fight and this WWE rumor came out in the summer. It just, it doesn't sit well.
We'll see.
Watch him now go on in about 4 years' time will be Moses Satama or something like that.
Yeah.
He's at the as you said, he's in the best. He's in the best place for a heavyweight, for a fledgling heavyweight.
Yeah, look, Jams, again, you're right here. He had a very extensive amateur career, and the Olympic Games isn't the be all and end all. But imagine if he medalled at the Olympics, you then would have had a bidding war like you got with the likes of Ben Whittaker, Anthony Joshua, going back to after 2012, Buatsi, etc. But we heard these rumours at the back end of last year about him going over to Queensbury, didn't we? We've just had to wait to get the announcement. So it shows there isn't the clamour and there isn't the swarming like there has been. And again, that is probably a bit of, us being a bit like, oh, look at how good we've had it. And of course, nothing can stay the same forever, but how we've done with our boxes has been the same for 5 or 6 cycles now. So it's a shame that there's such a drop off this time.
No, it really is. Yeah, crazy. Ryan Jalalov's back in the pro ranks Thursday night. He's back facing Spilmont, the Frenchman, who Alan Babbage knocked out in a couple of rounds, I think. But good to see Jalalov back, double Olympic gold medalist after losing to Joe Joyce, as you pointed out in Rio. Super heavy. He's some fighter, Jalalov.
Yeah, Jalalov is. And while we're on the Joe Joyce subject, because we're talking about the Olympics, Joe Joyce and Fraser Clark both went an Olympic cycle too long. Joyce done it because of AJ. Clark done it. Clark was actually in and around the camp in 2012 as well. So they both stayed as amateurs for too long. They've come over to the pro ranks with hype because they've got extensive amateur careers, but they've left it too long. You can say it's all well and good to say, well, heavyweights can peak in their 30s, but the heavyweights that peak in their 30s have been professionals since their mid to late 20s. They've gone through, they've had to adapt and overcome. Look at both Klitschko brothers had to overcome losses in their 20s. It doesn't work. And that, that's as good as Joyce looked as an amateur. His best win was Dubois as a professional, but you could always see the vulnerabilities and flaws there. And Fraser Clark just never has
isn't good enough. It just isn't good enough. It's just he's just not good enough. His style suited to the pros. He's got pretty fast hands. His feet aren't too bad. He's a big lump, but he's just not. I don't believe he's got that little bit of something that you need to be able to. I'm not saying he's soft. I don't mean that, but he just doesn't seem to have that grit that you need when it comes down to it.
Ruthless.
I think
he's not
so. I think he's too much of a
enough.
nice guy. I think he's a nice guy. I think Joe Joyce is a bit like that as well. He's a nice guy. I've met both of them, and they are really nice and pleasant to be around.
Yeah, they're great guys. You can tell, can't you? Definitely.
And I'm not saying you have to be a prick, but like Liam says, that edge, I just don't think they've got that. And I think with certainly with Fraser, he's just missed the boat by 4 years by staying around too long. But obviously, as you said, AJ got the first one. Joyce stayed around to get the next one, and Fraser had to stay around to get the next one after Joyce. So it's AJ's fault. Wanker.
Big one for Otto Wallin. You are right, Pat, on that. He's got to win on Saturday night. Eddie wants to sign Ori, but did turn it down. I remember not what it was, but really was something, definitely. I'm not too sure on this Kazakh you're talking about, Ramla, but I'll have to have a little look. What's going on? Luca's here. Hope you're well. Luca agrees. RE Fraser Clark. On Fraser Clark, like what you were saying, it was a good point. Fabio Wardley's got that in him, though, hasn't he? He's ruthless. And, you look at their amateur, non-existent for Fabio, whereas Fraser's decorated as anything. But, Fabio's got that bit of edge, doesn't he? And sometimes that's what it is. 100%. Anyone want to take this one from Jams? About Vlad, apparently there's legs to his comeback. I did read it myself as well.
Okay. I mean, Vladimir Klitschko in his prime was a very hard to watch style. It was very, you had to be a boxing purist to get through some of Klitschko's fights, especially when he done Alexander Povetkin, Pulev, and that sort of back-to-back leading up to
Who?
Yeah, he's been erased from history.
Doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist anymore. The invisible man.
It was never the best style, was it? And 2017 was the AJ fight. 2015 was the loss to Fury. 10 years ago. He's not suddenly going to come back as a destructive puncher.
He'll get murdered. He'll get absolutely murdered. He's sat at home watching fights.
He beat Pulev for his WBA regular.
Yeah, but that says more about Pulev, mate.
He's thought, I could beat him. I could beat him. Yeah, it's all well and good sat at home or sat ringside. He's 49, right? Fit or not, whether he stayed in shape or not, he is 49. He may beat a certain level, but as he steps up the levels, Pulev will punch an hole in his head now, I believe. Is that a trick question? That's a rhetorical question, surely.
Fabio.
Sorry, Wardley will murder Lawrence Okola. He'll absolutely murder him.
I'd take Wardley to stop
Okola. There's legs to that apparently for the end of this year.
Yeah, I don't hate the fight in general. I actually think it's not.
It's a decent fight, but I just think that as we were talking about,
as well.
I think Lawrence Okola is another one of those who hasn't got that spite, that venom, that vitriol, that edge. Wardley's got that in buckets, mate. Absolute buckets. No, never heard of that guy. Never heard of him.
Yeah, we're laughing about it earlier. Jam's crazy, and the fair play to him, though. Ultimately, that's what should happen if you.
So that's David Price and Dillian White that never lost to Alexander Povetkin.
Do you know what's going to happen though? If they might Lance Armstrong him, he might have to pay all the money back, all the purses that he's had. Do you remember they did that to Lance Armstrong?
He was state funded by Pulev anyway, so I'm sure he can find a loophole to get out of it.
Pulev will just go, I know nothing.
Klitschko beats Pulev, Luca says. Look, it'd be a 50-50 fight.
I'll take that bet, Luca.
I think it's a 50-50 all day at this point. Boys, another couple to touch on. Wood and Kakachi looks like it's going to happen in May in Nottingham. Kakachi's vacated his IBF. Sugar
but
Nunes
he's kept the wheelie bin green belt. It's on the line.
Yeah, the IBO. The IBO is on the line.
It'll have to be on a Thursday. That's what day my green bin goes out.
Are you on commission for the IBO yet, mate? I'm sure they're loving
Not yet, no, but I own the copyright to Wheelie Bin Green, so they'll need to start paying me a retainer soon, or at least a commission. But no, good fight, great fight. I just wish Kakachi hadn't have done what he did, but we understand why he did, why he's done what he's done. He's gone for the bigger fight. It's in Nottingham. I mean, is it going to be at the City Ground? Is it a big enough fight to be at the City Ground?
Be in the arena, they said.
When they're looking at doing it, it's still football season as well. As excited as I am for the fight, Lee Wood's inactivity is a big problem. Especially, it would be a problem for me against anyone, but especially with how active and the role that Kakachi's on, that levels the playing field of this fight for me a bit.
Yeah, you say the role is on, but if that fight, how long's Kakachi been out of the ring by the time that fight comes? 6 months.
Yeah, but
longer probably. Yeah, 8 months.
Yeah, so he's not, he's not coming off momentum himself, really, is he? He's coming off a standing start himself. I get what you mean. I understand. Lee Wood's been out significantly longer with injury and issues with promoters and whatnot, but I think it could be. I think the fact that Kakachi's not got any momentum and he's not coming off a fight sort of fairly recently within, 8 to 12 weeks, I think that could potentially even it out. I know that contradicts what you were saying there, Liam, about Wood being out for a long time, but I just think the fact that Kakachi's not coming straight out of another fight camp could make it a bit closer.
Yeah. I agree, mate. You don't know what both of them have been doing. Lee Wood has been at every single promoter's show, from Wasserman to flipping Boxer to everything, trying to get a deal, and you do feel for him. And Eddie Hearn was absolutely ruthless when he came out and said what he said about the reasoning why that deal wasn't being renewed. Yes, we had some great nights, but for the financial side of things, we were losing money. Is just like breaking it down to what he said, and that's absolutely ruthless to hear when you've had some of your best nights of the best nights of your career because of one promoter giving you a shot. The IBF belt getting dashed, we said, didn't we? We understand why he's done it. We completely respect why he's done it, but it says more about the IBF, doesn't it? Because they were more than happy to not have it on the line for the Josh Warrington fight, as I've said before. And now he's actually wants to have a fight and wants to be active. They're telling him he's got to be stripped. He had that fairy tale beating Cordina out in Saudi, and he's then being, dropped from a great height by the governing body because they want to get their 3% as quickly as they can elsewhere.
Yeah, look, Jams is right here. I think this is the ultimate reason.
Oh, yeah, of course. And he would have got smoked.
Yeah, it was a tough night to work for anybody, is Sugar Nunes. But yeah, Jams also said, I think it's the last payday for Lee. Being in Nottingham will help, but I'm ultimately going Kakachi. Kakachi is definitely the favourite, I think, heading in, but you can't rule out Lee Wood, especially with his ability. Jams, I'm going to ask Billy Nelson this in 25 minutes' time. He's coming on, we're having a chat, so we'll be asking him about AJ and Bacoli, but I think that was a bit of tongue-in-cheek from Ben Shalom, if I'm being honest. I don't even think a Jagba versus Bacoli has been formally announced yet, although it is going to happen. I don't think it's official.
None of those 3 fights that have been reported for Times Square, so that includes Garcia and Haney, have been officially announced.
I'm sick of hearing Martin Bacoli say he's got fights, to be fair, because none of them are made.
We know that man
to get fights, but he just keeps saying that he's fighting such and such, and then we know that nothing's signed. So it's hard to get excited for fights that we're unsure are actually going to happen, or whether they're just rumor or trolling or trying to negotiate the fight.
Yeah, like you just said, Sam, Billy will be able to tell us hopefully fully what's happening in a minute. We know a Jagba's ordered, so we know if he wants to stick with the IBF route, why wouldn't he want to stick with the IBF route? If we're honest, the path to Dubois is probably clearer than trying to pick up one of the other 3 alphabet belts when they get thrown up in the air by Usyk in a couple of months. So you've got to stay on this path. But I agree.
9 p.m. Jam, Billy's in.
He was at the Boxer show, wasn't he? Him and Billy were at the Boxer show. It was good to see him around.
Really, Luca? Well, I've watched 2 interviews this week. One where he said he might be fighting Wilder, and one where he said he's fighting AJ in Africa.
There's been all sorts going around. I mean, Bacoli said he was going to fight Coley at one point.
Where was he ringside last week? And he was talking to someone ringside, and that's where he said,
Azim.
He's speaking to Spencer Olin or Gareth Davis. He was talking to
fighting in Africa against AJ. He said it were nearly done.
It's a mess. And look, as much as we can say that a lot of fighters have ran away or decided to go in different directions from fighting Martin Bacoli, he also hasn't helped himself by, when we're seeing a clear path lined up for him, he starts talking about Deontay Wilder or Lawrence Okoli, or
he's spreading it too thin. He's spreading himself too thin, and then we don't know which fight's which. Just fight a Jagba and then we go from there. He's taking his eye off the ball, which is a dangerous thing to do. I think he beats a Jagba, but only if he's 100%.
Adi Oladipo made a good point about Bacoli, to be fair. Like, I don't know if either of you saw it, but he was kind of like, just got to be careful not to hype him too much. He is good, Bacoli, definitely, but I think we need to just see him get the fights first.
I've backtracked on that because I did a little bit of my own. I did a couple of deep dives, and some of these sparring stories are I'm starting to see a couple of holes in the stories and the punches that he said he dropped. He forgets what he said. So I'd like to see him. We'll know what we will see what he does against a Jagba, because we could have just got drawn into the hype, and it's fantastic marketing from him and Billy with the sparring stories. But ultimately, he's lost against Hunter. He completely got beaten up in the stage of that fight, and he's had a couple of decent wins and the Anderson win.
Yeah. The guy's trying to make himself right. I think Ben Shalom's finally got an interest in Bacoli, doesn't he now? Like, I've spoke to Billy loads of times before where he wasn't overly happy about what Boxer were doing with Bacoli, but obviously since the Anderson fight, he's flavour of the month now, isn't he?
Is that you saying I'm right, Luca, yeah?
I mean...
some UFC guys.
The fact that it took 2 fights and Billy Nelson having to scream from the rooftops to get, a reply from Ben Shalom just says everything I think about.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm lost.
I think,
who's the 505? I don't know what that means. What does that
Ariel
mean?
Hawani, Jam's probably talking about for the journalist. 505 called him out on it. He deleted it real quick. Gunners in the house. Hope you are gonna. I don't think it's 10 rounds. It's 10. I don't know why Topology have put it as 12. I'm sure it's 10.
It's a 10 rounder. It's the same situation as when Chisora fought Joyce. It's a 10 rounder. It's only sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control.
Yeah, there's no way that'll be a 12 rounder. That'd just be stupid on all fronts.
No,
yeah, Topology have got that one wrong.
He's going to struggle to get through 3 rounds, never mind 10. So let's not add another 6 minutes onto it.
Just last one then, boys, before we wrap up. Hiya, Wayne. Hope you're well, my friend. Thanks for joining us. I feel like we've been a little bit. We've called quite a few things out tonight, so I want to be positive, but I can't. I have to just mention this last one. Why the fuck is Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero going to be for a WBA regular 147 championship?
God only knows. He's gone back to Reynoso, hasn't he, recently as well. He's left Derek James.
Has he left him?
Yeah, he's gone back to Eddie Reynoso.
He's back in the Canelo camp.
Looks like it, yeah.
The answer to your question is
God only
WBA
knows.
saw that it's going to be a turkey show. They know how much money they're going to get for their 3%. So they thought, right,
let's
can we
associate ourselves
whack
with
on it? Yeah, that's what it is, mate. It's
cash grab.
It's a cash grab, but it also shows everything that's still wrong with boxing when a fighter is for a regular world title.
Yeah, neither of them have done anything recently to deserve to even box for an eliminator. Absolutely nothing. One's coming from a bad defeat and one's coming off a drugs ban.
Yeah, exactly.
That says everything that's wrong with the sport. And this is the one of the governing
Danny Onis is a WBA champion. He's fighting Boots in a unification. Why do we need a WBA?
Well, we don't. We never do. But what it says for me is that the governing bodies that are meant to crack down on drugs cheats, there should be criteria. If you've come back off a ban, there should be criteria like you're not allowed to fight for a recognised world title for a certain amount of time. But no, they've just put him straight in there thinking, like they said, let's get associated with Riyadh season. Let's get our 3%. Don't give a shit that one of them just got flatlined and the other one's just coming off a drugs ban. It's disgusting, man. Like as you said, it shows everything that's wrong with the sport that we love and spend so much time talking about. It's awful, man.
It's a good, and this is the thing. It's a very good fight. You favour Ryan Garcia, but Rolly isn't very often in a dull fight. But now, unfortunately, we're getting wound up about a BS trinket that shouldn't actually exist being strapped onto the fight. It's so frustrating. How do you get yourself into the positions? Rolly's had one win since he got flatlined by Pitbull, and that was on the Canelo Edgar Berlanga cards. And now we're in the position where he's fighting for a world title off the back of that 10 rounder, and it's just a mess, mate. Governing bodies get so excited seeing how much money's gone into the sport through Riyadh season. And yes, we got a load of undisputed fights thanks to Turkey, but there's still some greed there. And you see it with stuff like this, or you won't see a single fight in Saudi in 2 weeks' time that doesn't have an international, an intercontinental, an interim, or some sort of BS belt from one of these 4 governing bodies attached. And if you look back through all the Riyadh season shows, Mark Chamberlain is probably the only fighter that hasn't fought for an alphabet belt on one of these Riyadh season shows. They have to attach themselves to it for the money. And it's BS. And this is a prime example of how crap it is. You don't need a belt to sell this card. It's sold. The problem with that, and Garcia are there.
The problem with that, Jams, is we're going to get people like fucking Dana White and Uncle Turkey that will be the governing body because they'll just throw money at it and then everybody will dance to their tune when it should be like former fighters that have an organisation and it becomes a governing body. We can't just have multi-billionaires coming in and saying, right, because that's what Turkey's in the process of doing, is monopolising the sport. And eventually
that's his
we'll
goal,
have,
isn't it? Definitely. That's why he's throwing all the money at it and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So we do need one governing body. We just need it right.
Yeah, 100%.
You just need the
What,
green.
Lucas?
And
So
politics
that's the
taken out
fight
of it.
you want to see: Rolly Romero versus Ryan Garcia. It's not a fight I've ever wanted to see.
Luca, the belts have diluted boxing for too long. That's the reality, and it's doing it still now in 2025. I haven't been watching boxing for as long as Sam or Jay, but it winds me up, it frustrates me, and it just takes away from the ring, because this is a Ring Magazine card, the Ring Magazine Turkey product. Like, watch somehow some governing body is going to get a belt on Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr.
Yes.
You know that's going to happen, and that doesn't
is Eubank still not? Is he not the IBO champion still?
I don't know. Wasn't that 168? I don't know what's going on with Eubank. That's the thing.
Like it, Luca.
Good attitude, Luca. I'll watch it.
Cheers for that, Jams. Yeah, appreciate that, my friend. I guess we'll wrap up there, boys. That's an hour done. Thanks to everyone that's joined us as always. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Mr. Billy Nelson's kindly agreed to come on. Going to ask him some questions around Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan going up against Andy Lee. Bacoli, of course, and the Jagba coming up as well. I'm going to ask him about February 22nd Riyadh card as well. So anyone that's interested, feel free to hop on in around about 15 minutes time. Thanks to Jams, Luca, Rambler, Gunner, DJ Pat, Ryan Hong, Hawkan, anybody else that I've missed, I do apologise. Yems Talks Boxing, of course, and of course to Jay and Liam. And we'll see you very shortly.
See you shortly. Cheers, guys.